It really is the last chance saloon for BioWare. If Dragon Age Veilguard fails as a video game, I'm pretty sure that EA are going to shut the company down. It's had miss after miss over the course of the last decade or so. They need something to go their way. So with one final throw of the dice, what are they betting it all on? Double mastectomy scars and pronouns. Because Western Gaming Company. Hi everyone, it's Az here from HeelvsBabyface. At the end of next month, Dragon Age Veilguard releases, and let's be totally honest, it's a game that's had a very troubled development cycle, but when you know that BioWare is the company that's making it, then it doesn't become a surprise at all. All the people that made this developer a wonderful company back in the day have left, and now we are left with remnants of people who are more interested with inserting current day politics, apparently, than making a decent game, because this goes far beyond the character creation screen. Mass Effect Andromeda was a complete and utter disaster, not only because they didn't know how to use the engine properly, but in terms of world, design, characters, dialogue, storytelling, quest development. The whole thing was an unmitigated disaster. And even back in 2017, Eurogamer are bitching about the failure of trans representation within that game. Because this isn't about entertainment, it's about the insertion of far-left ideology. Not just that, exceedingly controversial ideology, which we'll get to later. BioWare attempted to cope by saying the failure of Mass Effect Andromeda was due to Zelda, which, as we all know, is a bunch of crap. Soon after, BioWare Montreal was closed down, aka merged together, but closed down. It was shut down. EA, who loves to shut down companies, shut it down. The Mass Effect franchise went on hold, and their next big game was going to be Anthem. What could possibly go wrong with, oh god, everything went wrong with Anthem. Why Anthem failed and why it was never destined to succeed was actually a very true headline. Anthem was never destined to succeed because BioWare never knew what Anthem actually was. If you look into the history of the game, it's literal mismanagement 101 from start to finish. And even when they decided to release some gameplay footage from it at E3, it was an on-the-rails, put-together cutscene, and even then, the company didn't know what on earth they were doing in terms of the design of the game. EA wanted 6 million copies of the game to sell that March, and it sold only 2, a third of what they wanted, and so it was soon after decided that Anthem would no longer be supported as a video game, leaving customers that did make the purchase exceedingly angry, and was a huge black spot for BioWare, as well as another unmitigated disaster for them. The only franchise that BioWare had left was Dragon Age, and everything wasn't plain sailing for that franchise either. Dragon Age Origins being exceedingly well received across the board, Dragon Age 2 fell very short of that indeed. And then when Dragon Age Inquisition came out, it proved to be exceedingly divisive amongst the Dragon Age fans. So Dragon Age 4, well, that has to hit the mark, because if this fails, it really does look like BioWare goes under.
But he, him, she, her, and they, them, and then your gender is man, woman, non-binary. Top surgery scars are also included in this for all of our trans and non-binary rooks out there.
There is nothing I love more. Taking my headphones off, fuck that. Yeah, we're back here again, folks. The never-ending cesspit that is the Western gaming industry. Are you pro-child mutilation? Well, good news. You can live out that fantasy in the new Dragon Age game. But before we even start to go down this avenue, let's just address the game itself. This is the game director, somebody that goes by the name of Corrine Bush. Surprisingly enough, their X account tweets seem to be protected for some reason. Who knows why? And Corinne is actually a trans female, aka a man who would like to identify as a woman. Wow, this is so spooky because I'm recording this video live for me. However, by the time you watch this video, I'm now in the future. I'm probably doing the laundry or the dishes or flicking my bean or something. And yet, even though this is the past for you, I collectively heard so many people that are watching this video when I said that last segment go, oh, out loud. How queer! Let the internet just do their thing. And on the left is an image of them from 2020. And on the right is an image of them from 2021. That's not a long time ago. And coincidentally enough, just so happens to be around the period that stuff like this got very trendy. Wow. I'm sure it's just a massive coincidence that this sort of ideology actually affords you wonderful protections in current day, particularly because government, corporations, media, entertainment, and education, they all espouse this same ideology that they hire people based off the color of the skin, their ethnicity, their gender, their sexual orientation, and no longer their skill sets, that they must fulfill certain quotas within their company to bring these people on board, whether or not they're trained to do so, qualified to do so, or possess the skill levels to do so. And yet, if you try to get rid of this ideology or people within this ideology, then you're subject to cancellation, termination. I mean, I am positive all of this is just a coincidence. Especially if you were a straight white male and the very thing that your ideology despises the most. Imagine the levels of protection that it would give to you if you became something different. Aesthetically, the game is taking a huge change in direction as well. There's not necessarily anything wrong with changing the aesthetic. However, when I see imagery like this, then all I see is a Critical Role wannabe. It doesn't feel like the aesthetic was something brand new and created to fit the Dragon Age world. It feels like they're just big fans of current day desktop popularization and have gone along with that trend. After all, Dragon Age is dark fantasy, and what I see on the screen here seems to just be the generic fantasy that we get in current day, almost AI generated, very Critical Role, very Wizards of the Coast. It doesn't seem to have its own identity. Imagine the fucking irony there, eh? From what I've seen of the combat so far as well, it does appear to be rather clunky in nature. However, combat can be very deceptive because watching something doesn't necessarily translate to how you play it, but I certainly have my reservations and doubt at the moment, particularly when a lot of it seems to be stopping to bring up menu screens, to hit an ability, to use in a fight, to then go back into the action combat. The two don't necessarily merge together particularly well. So let's get back to the insertion of ideology for no other reason than to push your ideology, for no other reason than to pander to the people because of this ideology, but also to show the hypocrisy of this ideology. If you want to look like some zipper-tit Californian, then yes, you can create that fantasy. What's wrong with that? You can create whatever fantasy you want in this character creation screen. Unless, of course, you want to create an attractive woman. As somebody who personally identifies with busty Asian ladies, I was very distraught to find out that this is the biggest boob size and ass size that you can get in the game, aka ironing board Annie. But more importantly, what if you are a woman playing this and you are busty? Or you have a big ass? You want to see yourself with those assets in the game. The game's saying, no, you can't. Because there's probably a very good reason that there's a limitation on the breast size and the ass size, and that's got everything to do with male gaze. Because when you start to insert ideology into your video game, it only goes one fucking way. Every time, all the time. We're also dealing with an ideology that is aggressively trying to invade women's spaces, from their private and personal areas through to their sports, through to their jobs, all in the name of stunning and brave. So if you want to play this silly beggars game of inclusive, but in the same breath be excluding of other assets, then you are a massive hypocrite and simply allowing what you want to allow, aka your affirmed ideology. So we are now meant to believe that in this fantastical world of magic and monsters that your character wanted to have a sex change. Not only that, there wasn't the magic to create that. However, there was the skilled surgery to be able to perform the operation. Even though if you wanted to have a sex change, do you know what you could have done? Made a male character in the character screen. You could have just made the other gender in the character creation screen, because somebody that's truly trans, somebody that truly does suffer from gender dysmorphia, which must be horrendous, and I wouldn't wish this on my worst enemy, would do that. They would create the other gender, the gender that they wished they were. So now it's not about fantasy, now it's about fetish. So that's why you include the non-binary and the they, them, and that sort of absolute nonsense, which will only go to alienate portions of your potential audience. Because as we all know, unless you agree wholeheartedly, fully go along with the narrative of the far left, then you are an Austrian painter. And if you want to express an opinion about this as a customer, you will quickly find that you're branded a bigot, an ist, a phobe, an ism, because you won't go along with the narrative. And shout out to George for this, but if you're gonna do the chest operation, why aren't you doing the forearm operation? Doesn't your ideology stretch that far into the budget? I mean, after all, it probably cost a lot more money to redo every single forearm of a character in a game, whereas putting just a couple of scars on a chest, well, that's so much easier. The cost of ideology, I guess. It truly is a sad state of affairs where the mutilation of human beings is being celebrated. Human beings who are exceedingly vulnerable and exceedingly open to exploitation, and they're not getting the help that they truly need. Government, medical, and corporate are exploiting them while hiding behind the ideology themselves in an effort to push their nefarious schemes, using the ideology as both a sword and a shield at the same time to avoid criticism and also attack people who dare speak up against it. It's so insidious, it hurts. I think there's plenty of question marks around Dragon Age Veilguard, just purely in terms of gameplay, characters, story, etc. Never mind adding this to the equation, which will drive people away from even attempting your game. At the end of next month, we're gonna find out exactly what it's like and exactly how the public respond to it. But if it fails, goodbye BioWare, because this will be it for you. I'll see you in the next video. You take care. Bye for now.